I recently watched a YouTube video about Flogo machines. Flogo is a shortened term for floating logos. These machines are large box-like affairs that produce helium-filled foam, which is then forced through various stencils and then cut off to float up into the sky and serve for advertising. And I thought that would be pretty neat to make something in a smaller version for home use. I quickly learned that it's a lot harder than it looks. This video will show what I did, how I did it, and why, and hopefully give a starting point for anyone else who wants to give this a go. A helium-filled foam generator isn't really that hard to make. Here's what my setup looked like. The first thing I discovered is that a large diameter shallow pan worked much better than a narrow diameter tall vessel, and that a 12-inch diameter cake pan was just about ideal. Next, and probably the most important thing, is how the bubbles are created. If you just cut the end off of a piece of vinyl flex line, you get bubbles that are too big. If you use an air stone from an aquarium, the bubbles are too small. The amount of liquid used to make a cubic foot of foam with a small air stone type bubbler is so great that the bubbles won't float. They'll just rise and sort of flop over to one side. After a lot of experimenting, I found that the best hole diameter was made by heating up a regular pin and using it to melt holes along the length of a tube. The tube is held to the bottom of the pan in a ring so that you get uniform foam production. Start the holes about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch apart, and as you work your way around to the very end, because it's losing pressure all the way, tighten the holes up a little bit until they get down to a 1/4 of an inch apart over here. That will also help give you more uniform foam development. The thing you want to avoid is a lot of foam development on one side and very little on the other. If that happens, the foam structure tends to fall over. Once you've got this set up, you next need a source of helium. And for most people, the easiest and most convenient source is a helium can from Walmart or Target or almost anywhere, used for parties for filling up helium balloons for children. I take the 1/4 inch diameter vinyl air stone line, which is very easily available almost anywhere, and use a pair of needle nose pliers to stretch the end out so it's a little bit bigger, and then force it onto the rubber end of the exhaust, and then seal it with a little tape, in this case some aluminum tape. When you first open it up, open the valve up just a little bit and test the foam production. If you try to force too much helium through the tube, one of two things can happen. You can blow the tube off of the nozzle here, and you can create excessively large diameter bubbles, which don't work very good for this. And that's pretty much the complete setup. Let's take it outside and look at some more Flogos. The first time I tried this, I filled the cake pan up with bubble solution I had purchased from Walmart, started pumping out foam, and nothing. They wouldn't float. What I discovered is that even the thinnest, cheapest bubble solution you buy is too heavy. I had to lighten it up by mixing 8 cups of water to 1 cup of bubble solution. This produced a lighter foam, which, as you can see, floated very well. I recommend keeping the stick used to cut the Flogos off very dry. If not, they don't break the bubbles as they pass through, and as you can see here, can be very frustrating. Instead of cutting them off, a lot of times it's fun just to let the column of foam extend upward until it stretches so far that it breaks free on its own. One of the great things about Flogos is that unlike regular soap bubbles, which typically pop in just 15 or 20 seconds, these can last easily 10 minutes. In fact, most time, they will float out of sight before they dissipate. Another bonus is that unlike soap bubbles, which are pretty much transparent, Flogos reflect a lot of light back. They're very intense white and they even sparkle, so they're attractive for a much longer period of time. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get complex shapes out of my Flogos. My generator was just too small, and when I tried to make stencils to put over it, the foam would leak out of the sides and the edges would tend to blunt out because the foam has its own sort of viscosity. So that was one disappointment. Another problem is that these are very expensive. Even a small can of helium costs about $20 if you get it in one of the balloon kits, and this only provides about 5 minutes, maybe 6, of Flogo production. I've been able to stretch it to 7 minutes if I'm very careful about turning the valve off between each Flogo, which is harder than you might think it is because it tends to get kind of exciting when you're producing these because they look so good. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it gives you some ideas for making your own Flogo generator. And as always, thank you very much for watching.